Tire Troubles. Read by Short Storytelling. Written by Short Storytelling. I know some people out there love their cars. Me, I just use them. They're a device to get me from point A to point B in a timely fashion. Nothing tends to stress me out more than my car not functioning. I had yet another vehicular adventure yesterday and just further emphasized my dependence on my car. Yesterday was an early day for me. I'd done some server migrations over the weekend, converting some of our older servers into virtual PCs. I'll spare you the technical details of the process other than to say it's very time-consuming. There were concerns by management that things may not go smoothly Monday morning, and I had to be into work at 6 a.m. to deal with any issues that may come up. I have no concerns with this getting up early stuff. I have a tendency to be any kind of sleeper I need to be for the situation. I'm not a morning or night person, simply flexible. At any rate, I was traveling to work at 5:30ish in the morning twilight. The main road outside my small hometown is a 55-mile-per-hour road, so I was cruising right along when I suddenly heard a bad noise. When it comes to cars, there are all kinds of bad noises. I'm familiar with enough to know that this was not a major bad noise, but bad enough. The noise I'd heard was a repeating thumping noise. It was centered, by my estimation, at the back of my vehicle. This immediately is a good thing because the engine is in the front of my car, meaning it was safe from worry. The thing about bad car noises is they tend to get worse if you ignore them. Based on that knowledge, I pulled over to investigate. Considering the location, I thought it had to be a tire, and probably the back passenger tire. A quick inspection validated my thinking. I heard a faint hissing sound, never a good thing with tires, and felt around my tire for the source. Keep in mind that it was dark, so I couldn't see terribly well via the glow of my blinking taillights. I had my emergency flashers on, of course. It appeared to be a small rock about the size of my thumb. I wiggled it a bit, and it dislodged into my hand. This struck me as odd, since it hadn't been stuck in the tire, but stuck to something else stuck in my tire. I looked at the rock for a moment and noticed it wasn't a rock, but plastic. Severely scratched and broken plastic with a nice circular hole through the metal. Looking back at my tire, I saw there was still something protruding from it. I wiggled it a bit. It was long and metal and thicker than a nail. As I moved it around, I got the impression that the 1.5 inch sticking out was just a small length of it. This made me sad. Having a regular nail in your tire is really not a huge deal. You can pull the nail out and patch the tire no problem. You should leave the nail in until a professional can look at it, as the leak will get faster if you pull it out. A trip to your local tire store should get things right as rain in no time. Having something long in your tire is more troublesome, as it's likely to punch a hole in the side of your tire which cannot be repaired. At this point, I had to make a judgment call. I could spend the extra time now to remove everything from my trunk, of which there is a lot as I have a family with small children, jack up the car, remove the tire, put on the spare, assuming it's still in good shape, and put the flat tire in the trunk. All the while making myself filthy with road grit as it had been raining early in the morning. I had to balance that with the fact that I had to be at work as soon as possible in case something went wrong. My other option was to drive on it as it was and hope I didn't make the damage worse. I chose the latter option, along with a prudent decision to stay off the freeway and drive on the surface streets. Slower would be better, as additional damage and danger is likelier at higher speeds. The good news was that once I was driving again, there was no more noise that I needed to be concerned with. I made good time, even on the surface streets, thanks to it being so early in the morning. I got to work right on time and inspected my tire briefly. There was a long metal spike in my tire and a slow hiss. As I examined it, I realized it was a screwdriver. What I have still not figured out is how this screwdriver got embedded in my tire, since it was the bladed or the flat-headed tip that was sticking out. This meant the blunt end of the screwdriver was the part that had actually punctured my tire. I swear, the oddest things happened to me. I knew the leak was going to be bad enough that my tire would be droopy and undrivable in a very short amount of time. I had two concerns about this. One, it would be a fast leak, but not so fast that my super-duper wedding present from years ago portable air compressor couldn't handle it. Two, it would be too fast to handle, and I would not be able to refill it. This is one of those situations where you can spend a bunch of time worrying about it, but not affect the eventual outcome at all by doing so. Somehow, knowing that never helps me not to worry about it, I decided to try and get it dealt with on my lunch hour. I called ahead to the tire place and asked them what to expect. They were sufficiently vague when it came to a time frame, but it would be a free repair since I purchased my tires from them. I thought to myself that this was assuming I hadn't damaged the sidewall, but I would let them make that call, not me. My lunchtime came. I advised my boss I would be a bit late, and I went forth to the parking lot to inspect my car. My tire looked very sad. It was completely deflated and smooshed under the weight of my car. I dug into my trunk and produced my super-duper wedding present from years ago portable air compressor and connected it. The moment of truth had arrived. The calm of the morning was then split asunder by the monotonous drone of rude noise as my tire was filled. I dislike using the thing, as it always draws attention, mostly because it's as loud as a chainsaw. Sure enough, a couple of co-worker looky-loos showed up and inquired about the noise. I was also provided with suggestions as to where to buy tires in the future and the kind of service to expect. I'm not disparaging the information. It was good information. I just get uncomfortable when people come uninvited to help me with my troubles, kind of like I'm getting caught doing something, like it was my fault. Maybe it's just the toddler in me peeking out. I filled my tire and was pleased at the result. The air was mostly stable. I was sure it was still leaking, but I heard no telltale hiss, just the ringing in my ears from the compressor. The tire store was just over a mile away, so I figured I would be good to go at this point. Nothing eventful happened on the drive, and I made it there in good time. I was discouraged to see 3 people pull into the parking lot ahead of me because these places work on a first-come, first-served basis. Tire repairs do not take a long time in the world of car mechanics, but they take plenty long enough when you're just standing around waiting for it to be done. The more people ahead of me, the longer I would get to entertain myself with mental gymnastics. Upon entry, I was again assured there would be no charge. This made me quite happy and also made me inclined to buy my tires here again. Customer service tip: a happy customer is a returning customer. I asked about the wait time, and they said it should be about 30 to 40 minutes, and they would bring it in. I handed over my key and thought little of it. I went in and sat down in the little provided waiting area. There was a nice television playing only commercials as far as I could tell, a popcorn machine, complimentary coffee and tea, and a vending machine for snacks that only took coins. I decided to read the funny papers since they were lying around as well. Eventually, the commercials stopped, and I was ever so pleased to discover the television was tuned into the Golf Channel. In HD. I was so very glad it was HD, so I wouldn't miss a single minute detail of the exciting, action-packed sport of golf being played out before me. I rolled my eyes and returned to the funnies. I enjoy the funnies, although I miss the far side. I read my horoscope, the advice columns, and even tried to do the daily scramble in my head. By the time I was done, I had wasted 20 whole minutes. Not bad for a small section of the paper. I read the front page section as well, but it only took about 5 minutes to finish. Priorities, you know. I stood up, looked around. My car was still in the parking lot, still unmoved. I got myself some of the offered popcorn and tried to waste another 20 minutes. I strolled around, looked at the flashy tires and rims. I had about as much interest in them as I did in golf, and did pretty much nothing but munch on the popcorn. I was about halfway through my small bag when I looked at my popcorn and noticed it was dirty. Not a couple of cat hairs dirty, but covered with black-looking road grit dirty. I felt this was not unusual since I'd been handling my tire through the morning, but I didn't recall my hands being that dirty. I moseyed over to the popcorn machine again, after waiting for the mother and daughter that had just come in to get their popcorn and then walked out, and I examined the popcorn still in the machine. I found that there were dirty kernels of popcorn still in the machine. This left me off the hook, as I had used the scoop provided to fill my bag. I decided not to finish the rest of my popcorn and disposed of the bag. Clearly, someone from the shop or a customer had come in for a handful of the stuff and not washed ahead of time. Either that, or they offered me discounted prices on tires by saving so much money sweeping dropped popcorn back into the machine. By now, they were pulling out one of the vehicles in the bay, and again I asked about the time. The nice lady said I would be next. This pleased me. 40 minutes in, my car would finally get worked on. I saw the little man run out and get into my car. I waited while he started it. I waited and watched the brake lights come on. I waited. I waited a little more. Nothing seemed to be happening. I'd proactively muted my radio so he wasn't adjusting the volume or the vents. I wondered what he was doing. A few minutes later, he ran back in and asked me to move my car. Apparently, he couldn't get it to go into drive. It's an automatic transmission. I chuckled a little at this. There's this macho man side in every fellow that thinks his stuff is his stuff, so someone not able to use his stuff is secretly pleasing. I've had the same problem myself in the past. I went to my vehicle and used the small screwdriver I keep in the car for this to release the gear selector and slid it easily into reverse. I was directed into the bay with minimal fuss and then went back to my waiting. I could regale you with long stories of how exciting this all was, but the truth is that I simply waited another 20 minutes while he fixed my tire. After the little man moved my car back out front, he came in to have me sign the invoice. He produced the evil, broken screwdriver that had been lodged blunt end first into my tire, and told me that I'd been lucky as it had gone in just right so as not to damage the sidewall. Fascinating. I left with this evil piece of metal in my receipt and then drove back to work. I chose to keep the evil piece of metal as a trophy of sorts. It reminds me that there can be good things even in bad things. It wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. Spending my time to have my tire repaired for free isn't a big deal. Spending the money I do not have until payday to replace a tire too damaged to fix would have been another matter altogether. Besides, I find the evil piece of metal to have a nice heft to it, about 6 inches long. It's ideal for twirling in my fingers or thumping passers-by around my desk on the head.